classic Tasmanian day, pissing with rain. So I've pushed Gilby up into this picnic hut so that I can do the final walk around of the budget bobber build. This bike has turned out absolutely brilliant, and I'm really happy with it, and Mrs. Iro Taz is even more happy with it. So we bought Gilby from Launceston for $1,500 registered. It had no back brake, had no oil in it, it had no fuel pump, but it still went, and it had about 11,000 kilometres on it, even though it was a 1997 model. And so it formed the basis of the budget bobber build, and it's turned out really well. In no particular order as I walk around, we put a 1969 Harley Sportster sissy bar on it. We cut the back guard, we bobbed the back guard. I did that on Christmas Day because it was a day off and it was beautiful, and I'd had a couple of beers to build up the courage, and I think it turned out brilliantly. We put some eBay bullet indicators on it. We put a eBay side mount number plate and stoplight. We used a Vietnam era bum bag to make a custom side bag for Gilby, and I think that came out brilliantly. We trimmed the chain guard just so that you could see a little bit more of the sprocket and lighten that down. We took the heel plates off both sides, and probably bang for buck, the best modification we did was change the 16 tooth sprocket on the front stock to a 17 tooth. And realistically, if you're going to do any mod to this bike, do that one. Bang for buck, by far and away the best modification. From there we changed to a 40 tooth on the back, and that gives us a little bit more cruisability on the highway, and it allows Gilby to sit on 110, which is the highway speed limit in Australia. And the combination of the 17, 40 is awesome. Again, if you're going to do any modification to this bike, do that. We patinaed the side covers. We put some belts on to give us that retro look and tie into the cool paint job that Gilby had. We put some eBay foot pegs on it, and they look great. They perform great. I hated the stock foot pegs. We put a frame mounted flask for fuel, or if you're worried about carrying fuel, use it for water, use it for coffee, your choice. It just looks cool and suits the bike. We bobbed the front guard, we changed the brake rotor, and we changed the front caliper, and found that Chinese manufacturing standards are absolute rubbish, and we couldn't bleed that Chinese caliper well enough. So ultimately I put a Rico kit that I bought on eBay through the stock caliper that you see there, and hope to get another 20 years worth of use out of it. Works well. I put some right hand bends on the valve so you can actually get to it at the service station. We cleaned the fork seals with a piece of a milk carton. We put a chrome horn on. Some adjustable clutch and brake levers, because my Mrs. Iro Taz and I have got fairly different size hands, and they give us the ability to both ride this bike easily and more comfortably. Put some white Coke bottle grips. We patinaed a AliExpress fly screen to give us something to duck behind and take some of the wind blast off our chest as we're riding. Some short arm mirrors. We put some pod filters on it, and we tuned it to suit those pod filters. The front one is the air filter, and it's 48mm. The back one basically vents to the atmosphere rather than letting it go back through the airbox as it does standard. and that was bought on eBay as well. The carb heater that normally sits in the left pod we removed. I basically just cable tied up inside the frame so that we could remove the pods that are stock and give it a slimmer look. And from the back, basically the fuel tank is the widest point. The handlebars are from a 67 Triumph Daytona. I got them free from a swap meet when I bought a few more things. 7/8 bars, they look fantastic. They're less buzzy in the hands and wrists than the stock bars, and they make it, in my opinion, handle significantly better than the stock bars. We messed around with the exhaust a couple of times. We drilled holes in the rear baffles. We then gutted those baffles out, and then we went eBay/cut exhausts. And in the last video, we put eBay 45mm baffles back in that exhaust to give it some more back pressure and get it to run better. We tuned the bike a couple of times using the air fuel screw, and we rejetted the carburetor to deal with some of the modifications we made, and then we wrapped those with first white on the stock exhaust that I was messing with, and then grey fiberglass heat wrap. On the back, we initially went 10.5 inch hellbend struts, and they looked fantastic, but they were pretty rigid and made the bike a little bit skiddy and also very uncomfortable for anything over sort of an hour's worth of riding at a time. So we went to the CMX 250 or the Honda Rebel 250 shocks. I believe you can use LS650 Suzuki Savage shocks, and they work as well. I used a 3-inch eBay seat, and that came with the 3-inch barrel springs and the front mount. And I went to Bunnings, I bought some rubber to make the seat pan and to hold the back using bar stock. We made a mounting bracket. That's pretty controversial. Everyone was real worried about that. 12 months on, it hasn't budged. Haven't even really had to do the screws back up. It's worked an absolute treat. There are other ways to do it, but ultimately that's the quickest and easiest. And one of the goals of this video series was to do everything in the driveway. I've got a reasonably well set up shed and workshop, and not once did I take you in there because I wanted to do all of these modifications in the driveway to prove that it could be done by anyone with any skill level, rather than someone who's got a setup shed. So I used basic hand tools, and that was the easiest way to mount that seat, using basic hand tools. In the carby, we changed the jetting. We changed the fuel pump because it didn't have one, and I found it didn't run right without the fuel pump. It looked cool, but right at the highest revs you started to starve for fuel. So we put a fuel pump on it and it runs perfectly. We changed the jetting. Went up a couple of points because we did the pod filters and we did the carb slide mod, and we put the exhaust on. And again, we tuned it using the lean drop method, and I found that works a treat. The carb slide mod was particularly contentious. I copped the pasting a few times on the internet, and realistically a lot of those people didn't seem to really understand what the carb slide mod was. Basically, it's just a hole in the slide that allows it to go up and down quicker, giving you better throttle response because it takes some of the vacuum pressure away from that carb. So these bikes are set up for absolute beginners, and they make fantastic beginners bikes. And so allowing that carb glide to go up and down a little bit quicker, gives you a little bit better acceleration and much better throttle response. If you're worried about it and you're worried about the longevity of your bike, just plain and simply, guys, don't do it. It's your bike, it's your choice. That's Gilby, the budget bobber build. It's been an absolute joy to make the videos. I think it's turned out absolutely brilliantly. I did want to sand the tank down and patina rust it, but I just thought stock, that cream and red, looked fantastic, so I didn't have the heart to grind it down and yeah, beat it around, because it just looks so cool and it looks somewhat Indian-like in its colour. Mrs. I Ride Taz is absolutely stoked with it, and we get out on my XVS and her on Gilby, and we cruise around. Both bikes are obnoxiously loud, and we're very, very happy with it. And that was the object of the budget bobber build, to create a cool looking budget bobber that Mrs. I Ride Taz could ride, so that she didn't have to follow me around on a sports bike while I'm riding Izzy, my XVS 1100. We had a great time. I've met some amazing people through this build, and it's not over. There are a few things I want to do, but I just simply cannot justify the expense of doing some of them. I'd really want to put a 21-inch front and a Harley tank on it. It'd probably end up costing me another $1,000, and these videos have been pretty expensive to make. I've done them with love. I mean, realistically, I've spent far more on this bike than I ever planned to make from the YouTube monetization. So it certainly wasn't to make money. It wasn't really even to get subscribers. It was just to help you guys out, to sort of show you that it can all be done in your driveway with some basic hand tools, and you can turn a beginner bike into an absolutely cracking looking bobber. So from here on in, guys, I'll be just doing the odd update on this bike. I'm going to be on the channel doing some stuff to my Duke 390, the Duke Diaries, where we're going to mod that using a piggyback ECU and some brake changes, some air filter changes, just to make that as absolutely quick for the street as possible. And I've bought a Triumph Speedmaster, which is my next project bike for myself. But the main focus of the channel from here on in will be the Budget Brat build, Series 2 of the Budget Bobber build, and it's a Honda CB250 RS that I'm going to turn into a pretty sweet looking cafe racer slash brat style bike. Hope you guys stay tuned for that. There'll be a similar format to this, all done in the driveway, just to prove that using basic tools you can modify motorbikes. Till then, guys, my name's I Ride Taz. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Till then, with some sadness, I am out.